A warm welcome, everybody, to Estoril circuit for the final round of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, an inaugural season for this championship with, of course, the guest race at Le Mans on the Saturday morning and 5 other splendid races. We're here for qualifying, first of all. This will be 2 15-minute sessions with about a 5-minute interval between the two, whereby the first session, effectively in this format, will be almost a practice session. The rain pouring down here at Estoril, but we will have Super Pole, despite the fact that we only have 10 cars rather here this weekend. We have reached 13 in the past, so the Super Pole has kind of it meant that we had 10 cars working their way through into the second session, but this will be all in for the first session, then effectively all the times deleted and the cars back out for a second session to truly determine the grid positions. My name's Johnny Palmer. A warm welcome to you. We have got warm conditions, but it is rather wet and miserable as well here at Estoril. There's set to be a little bit of improvement later on today, I hear, but changeable conditions for today and indeed tomorrow into the European Le Mans Series race as well. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by John Hindhaugh for this weekend. John, your first opportunity to see these cars and indeed the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, although of course you were at Le Mans and you did see that support race. It wasn't the full 2 hours there though. This will be a 2-hour race later on today, and the onus for this session very much on the bronze driver, because it's the bronze guy that needs to do the qualifying.
Come to Estoril, they said. You love it, you said, at this time of the year. Pouring of rain. In fact, in fairness, early part of the week, it's been beautiful here. We're less than 5 kilometres.
Ask your drivers to be careful with the track limits. The verges are very wet. AstroTurf is very wet. And the grass is very wet. Abusing track limits may cost heavily on the drivers.
Eduardo Freitas there. Just had a quick word with him before we came down to the truck here. Almost pointless to say that it is a wet track, but it is a very wet track. As I was about to say, early part of the week, I got here on Wednesday, did midweek motorsport from here earlier on this week. It was beautiful Wednesday and Thursday.
2 minutes to open pit lane. Track has been declared wet. It's mandatory that all cars have the rain lights on.
And it rained heavily overnight, Johnny. There was some practice early in the week here, a few people doing some testing, and then there was practice here yesterday, but the track was washed clean overnight, and we've got more rain now. It was very heavy rain overnight, and it looks similarly difficult conditions there. Eduardo Freitas just mentioning that the verges will be difficult, self-policing in terms of track limits, I would think, for this session. We have seen some laps discounted in the earlier sessions from people,
yes,
because of track limits here.
Yes, I think that's something that Eduardo Freitas and his team in the steward's office in the Clerk of the Course will be stamping down on. We've seen that on several occasions in earlier rounds, particularly at Spa. But I'm trying to think back to earlier rounds this year.
1 minute to start the session. 1 minute to start the session.
I think this is probably the first full-on wet session we've had all year.
Really?
Because...
What, even at Spa?
Yeah, Spa was a beautiful weekend, unseasonably beautiful. I mean, we do seem to, in the Northern Europe, seem to be getting these Indian summers now, and September was great in Spa. Of course, these cars, had they been at Silverstone, would have experienced snow across the World Endurance Championship weekend, but these cars weren't at Silverstone. The first round taking place...
to go green. Under 30 seconds to go green. Please remind your drivers, rain lights must be on. Track limits, grass, AstroTurf and curbs are very slippery.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, Imola was the first round and that was glorious. Red Bull Ring we had good weather, and
Very
road?
envious of you going to Red Bull when it's still a circuit that's not been to.
Although you are ticking one off this
I
weekend,
am
are you
ticking
not?
this one off, yeah.
Yes.
4, 3, 2, 1, green. Track pit exit is now green.
So this is a bit of an odd session, really. It's not go out there and hammer around for half an hour, fastest guys at the front, is it?
No, I mean, you are kind of hammering around for half an hour, but it's just that the half an hour is split into 2 parts, and we have a little pause in proceedings. And if we had 12 or 13 cars as we've had in the past this year, then the split sessions would make sense. But the fact that we've got 10 means that everyone's automatically into the second session. So the careful thing you need to do, really, in these tricky sort of almost halfway house conditions, it's not fully wet, it's not fully dry.
Oh, that's
maybe
wet.
no, it is fully wet, actually.
That's
You're right.
full wet
Yes.
right now.
So, well, at least the condition is consistent, therefore.
Now,
And
in terms of this championship, it is mandated that you must have a bronze driver, isn't it?
correct, because you have to have a bronze driver in this session.
Right.
Yeah, but absolutely, your
So
duo
the
needs to
bronze
include.
driver is qualifying
That's right.
in both of the 15-minute sessions?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes. You are not allowed to qualify with a silver,
I
gold,
think that's
platinum
good.
driver.
I like that. That
Well,
gives the gentleman driver, a feeling of contributing to your grid position.
Oh, massively so. A bronze driver's part in these Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup races is huge, and I think that is its unique selling point, if you like. There's a lot of competition within the GT3 world for entries, where your money's going to go, and this, it's very slippery, yes. This really, for a driver starting off, Ivor Dunbar, for example, has a great co-driver in Johnny Molam, but what he needs is track time in order to improve and to get quicker and to learn these fantastic European circuits. And it's been fascinating to watch not only Ivor, but certainly the 25 car get quicker and quicker through the year and get quicker and quicker through a weekend as well. And, Johnny is a huge part of that in lending advice and looking at times that Ivor has done and giving him clues as to where to improve.
Full house GT3 specification cars. This obviously 911 GT3R. Now all Porsches are GT3 something. The R means that it is the FIA GT3 version of the car. Everyone on Michelin tyres, of course. This is the 88 Mentos racing car, and yes, that is the confectionery brand that is on there. Not quite a Paul Truswell plain white Porsche, but pretty close to it.
It was plain white when it first got unveiled at Imola, and Graham Goodwin and I were very quick down to that area of the paddock because this was virtually one of the first.
There were sweeties there.
There were sweeties there, number one, yes. But number two, this was one of the first 991 spec 911 GT3s. And we wanted to see it, and it wasn't stickered up at that time, so it was an all-white Porsche, and they stuck the Mentos stuff on the back subsequently.
I actually I think it's quite a pure shape of the car, and when you see it from the side, you'll see the air exits on the top of the wings there.
Yeah.
That's very similar to the GT3 RS road car that we saw at, when was that last year? I think it was Spa when I was taking pictures of that the first time I'd seen that car. But that's your classic 911 shape, isn't it? It's been tinkered with down through the years, but basically for the last 50 odd years you could put that in front of somebody and they would recognise that as a 911. Should have a bit of an advantage. I'm surprised he's using so much curb on the inside there.
Really struggling to get the power down on the exit of the chicane. This is Egidio Perfetti, by the way, at the wheel, who is the elder brother of Daniele Perfetti, who was the 2012 British GT champion with Michael Caine. That was in a Porsche as well. I don't remember seeing Daniele race again after that. I'm sure he has done the odd little bit here and there. But yes, he was famous for being in the confectionery business.
Very, very brave to be using the outside edge of the curb. Down the inside of the pit lane straight, trying to find a little bit of grip, but you can see from the amount of spray that's been thrown up, Johnny, that is difficult out there. Down into the first corner, which is called Turn 1. That is the BMS Scuderia Italia Ferrari. Luigi Bacchini behind the wheel of that car going through. And times-wise, it is Perfetti who's top of the shop.
So far, yes. So the mark has been laid down by the Norwegian. A 1:54.955 is the time to beat in this session, but bear in mind the times will be wiped at the end of the 15 minutes, and they'll have to do this all again. But it's a good reference point for us, nevertheless. There's a load of spray being chucked up the back there from the 51 car of Thomas Fleur. This is another 488 Ferrari.
Yes, this is the 51 AF Corsa car with the Swiss driver Thomas Fleur at the wheel. So again, that is the newer car. Doesn't look from the outside, the GT3 version, much the same as the GTE version that we have in the WEC, and the ELMS does not look very much different, but the changes are all underneath. And of course the sound, Johnny, that's the thing, because this is the turbocharged car. This is the car that sounds like, to me, a mid-1980s WRC rally car. The popping and banging on the overrun and the chirruping of the wastegate if you're trackside. And by the way, there's a half-decent crowd here today, despite the weather and the potential for rain that had been forecast from early morning. As I say, it chucked it down last night. But when I was coming in this morning, there was already a decent crowd in watching or getting ready to watch the final free practice session for the ELMS, which is what the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup is supporting again this weekend. Steady first season, I think. I'll have to be honest, I'm quite surprised there aren't more cars in it. It looks to me like a great series, guarantees the bronze driver plenty of track time, and of course has the added draw of a race at Le Mans on Le Mans 24-hour race weekend. This is the Aston. Now this is a V12 Vantage GT3. This is a car that I have driven, not this particular car, but one like it. And I would think they've turned the traction control up just a little bit today.
Yes, just a bit. Yeah, the Road to Le Mans race did really bring out lots of different GT3 cars, and obviously you've got the attraction, as you say, of supporting the biggest motor race in the world. So it really did bring out an awful lot of cars and drivers, and you think that there is potential for this championship. And word is strong for 2017 that people are seriously thinking about this. I spoke to Joe Osborne earlier on in the year, Paul Ricard, Flick Haig and Joe Osborne had a go in this championship in France, and he said he's got a lot of customers, if you like, that are very interested in getting involved in the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup because it gives so much opportunity for the lesser experienced driver. So, keeping your fingers crossed for next year.
And that trip to Le Mans, Johnny, there's prototypes in that.
That's right.
Because the LMP3 cars are allowed in. Now, that's a non-championship race for them, of course, but it gives you the opportunity on a big, wide open circuit at the Circuit de la Start to be able to learn about multi-class racing. And as I have said many times before in many other broadcasts, there is only one way to learn about multi-class racing, and that's to go multi-class racing.
Yeah.
And to be able to be introduced to that on the wider open spaces of Le Mans, where the speed differentials are quite sensible in terms of the prototypes being able to get past the GT3 cars, I think that's a great idea.
Yes, 19 cars made it to Le Mans in June for the Saturday morning race, and I think we were going to see a replay there, but it never quite reached us.
I think that was the 51 car just having a little issue there.
Yeah, may well have been. It's certainly a very ginger lap, this. Yeah, which you can understand, because it doesn't have to be all or nothing in this part of qualifying, and probably not for the final 15 minutes either. Yes, they'll be pushing, but this really is effectively an extension to practice. These cars have already had a couple of practice sessions, but the conditions have changed an awful lot since free practice 1 and 2.
Very point I was going to make, Johnny, that they have had practice, but not in these conditions. And I think they are going about it, these non-pro drivers are going about this very sensibly indeed. And it is the Aston actually at the moment of Saliolik who is leading, the Turkish driver. Oh dear.
That's the McLaren 650S off the track with Hamaguchi at the wheel. And I'm trying to work out where that was. Might have been just before the kink, actually, through Curva VIP.
Leading out at the moment then in Aston. Yes, I think you're right. TF Sport there with that, as ever, immaculately prepared Aston Martin V12 Vantage GT3 car.
So yeah, Sally's managed to slice a 10th off Egidio Perfetti's time to be top, and he goes even quicker for that one at 1:54.205. So clearly Sally Yolok's getting more comfortable with the conditions. This is not quite as quick as they went late last night, by the way, for free practice 2. And that was in wet conditions, but probably not as wet as these. And we had...
Awful understeer there, and he's just understeer in, oversteer out. That is horrible.
It's the worst possible, isn't it? And that's another off-track moment for Hiroshi Hamaguchi, I reckon, because he was off to driver's right before.
I'll give you that one. And
then driver's left into the gravel trap, so that car will, I can say, need a wash at the end of this. It'll probably have another wash in the next 15 minutes. Yes.
Watch the front wheels of this Aston in the faster corners if we get to see it, because you can just see how hard Sally is having to work on the steering. He's feeling for grip. ABS brakes here, staying into the middle of the road. He's not venturing onto where the normal line would be until right at the very last minute of the corners. The reason for that is that any rubber that is down there will not be helping him at this stage. So you saw the front of the Aston. He's braking very aggressively, which means he's confident with the car, Johnny, even in these conditions. But there you saw the understeer, and he's just trying to balance the car. This is the hook up through there. Easy to lose the back end there because you're trying to get on the power to get yourself up the hill. Tyre pressure's being played with there on the number 8 Scuderia Villorba Corsa car.
But interesting, Sally having to really tighten his lines on the approach and the exit of the corners just to stay off those ice-like curbs. And he did a really good job on the approach to the uphill chicane. But then, of course, through the left-hand part of the hook there, you're going to have to take the curb. And there was a little bit of wheel spin from that rear left, but he got through.
The interesting thing about the next session, all these times will be wiped out, as Johnny said earlier on. But in the next session, we have got a point up for grabs.
That's right. For
pole position. And given that the top teams are separated by just 12 points in the rankings, being TF Sport on 82 points, SMP Racing with the 72 car on 78 points, and the 88 white Porsche, the Mentos Racing car, on 70 points, that could be very, very important indeed for the team's championship. It's a little more open in terms of, or a little more cut and dried rather, in terms of the drivers, because Alexei Bazov and Viktor Shaitar actually have raced for 2 teams in terms of the names of the teams this year. So they have got 103 points in the drivers to Ewan Hankey and Sally Yolik in the Aston Martin on 82, and then Guido Perfetti is on 70 points on his own in what is effectively 3rd position in the championship.
Yes, because Perfetti's had 2 co-drivers, Klaus Bechler for the main part of the season, but he's also had Ben Barker in for a little while. So I think it was just 1 race. And Ben's here this weekend taking part in the 4 hours of Estoril as part of the European Le Mans Series, which will be qualifying today and race tomorrow. Now, there is a yellow flag down at curve 1. It's a McLaren potentially off the track.
And it's just regaining the track at the moment.
That's not the reason why we suddenly saw quite a few cars heading down the pit lane. I think they may have decided that's just about enough, but that's the 3rd moment there for Hiroshi Hamaguchi, testing the very limit of the circuit.
It's not going that fast.
No.
It's just, it is the inconsistency of the grip that will be catching people out here. So basically what you're doing now is, your racing driver instinct is to go find your braking point, hit your braking point and hit your turning point every single lap. That's what you're taught to do. Be consistent. What you're having to do here, lap on lap, at each corner you're coming round, and you don't know how much this grip is going to be. So you cease to become a quote-unquote racing driver, you've become a rally driver here, and you are basically turning the car in and driving the car to the grip that you are finding. So each time you're having to adjust what you're doing in the corner. Really difficult conditions.
And obviously all the water tends to accumulate in the same places. So you certainly know the areas of the track to avoid. But because of this constant rain, it may have now reached the level where it is getting consistent, and you can have a little bit of faith that yes, I can apply the power here, and I really can't on the exit of this corner. But 15 minutes will fly by when you're trying to work out where it's quick and where it's not. And we've not quite had the full 15 minutes. There are still cars out on track with 35 seconds to go. 3 cars still circulating. Sally Yolok in the Aston Martin, the TF Sport car. Egidio Perfetti, we've seen out there almost drifting it, four-wheel drifting out of Parabolica Ayrton Senna. And in fact, the third car of Hiroshi Hamaguchi has decided that's quite enough for him after 3 off-track excursions. Here is Yolok, and he's down again. Yeah, 3 seconds off his pace. So it will be Sally Yolok, by the looks of things, to top this time. A little bit academic, but the times will really matter in the next 15-minute dose.
Look at how much water those Michelin rain tyres are moving. They are super, super efficient. They're each tyre, and bear in mind there's not that much rubber on the road. If you take the fact that the tyres are cambered, they sit on the road at an angle, if you take the fact that the sipes, the grooves, take out a little bit of downward pressure as well, of course that's what's moving the water. They move a huge amount of water, about a bath load of water each tyre every second or so that they are turning, and they need to be cutting through to try and get some grip on the surface here at Estoril, track that's been around since the mid-1970s, 76 I think.
That's right.
This circuit opened up.
Yes, roughly then. So the Aston Martin pits, and I reckon Perfetti's come in as well. So in fact, the man waving the checkered flag had to turn around 180 degrees and wave it to everybody in the pit lane, because we didn't have any cars out on track still at the end of that session. But the top 10 will be asked to qualify in just under 5 minutes' time.
Just looking at the pattern of the grooves on the Michelin tyres. Now these are race tyres, they are designed specifically to go racing in, but look at how similar that would be if you bought a Michelin Pilot to put on your performance road car. There they are in the foreground on the left hand side, and this is where we get the advantage of all of the research and development that goes into these tyres. That's a fairly aggressive rain tyre that they have here, and Michelin Pilot 2s or 3s, or the Pilot Sports that go onto your road car, that pattern of sipes, of grooves that are there purely to, remember, that just moves the water. The grip comes from the rubber that's on the road, and you will see a very great similarity on your street tyres, on your road tyres. There's the Mentos 88 car, Perfetti and Bachler. It is you're right, that is a nice colour scheme, nice and clean, minty fresh, of course.
Naturally. But yes, Mentos, Chupa Chumps, all part of the same family, and all part of the Perfettis as well. Daniele Perfetti, Swiss, I think, and then Gidio is Norwegian. So there must be some history of the family moving around a little bit as well. And the team's actually Dutch, Mentos Racing. Egidio Perfetti and Klaas Bachler, as I say, joined again the young Austrian, who is very, very quick, and it would be fun to actually see what he could do in a wet session like this.
That's the Mads Rasmussen 71 AF Corsa Ferrari. Now that is a 458, that's the older car. The 72 is the 488, the SMP racing car. And they've been the form team, haven't they, in the last few races?
Yeah, well, it was that car that raced at Le Mans, but it was under AF Corsa.
What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I think they were intending to enter the championship as AF Corsa, or maybe it was just a one-off at that stage to do the Road to the Le Mans event. They had lots of fun. We must come back and do this. I would bet that it's actually very similar team personnel, because a lot of SMP racing cars are run by AF Corsa under the auspices of SMP Racing, but they have been renamed SMP Racing. The car number changed from 57 to 72. The drivers still get all the points, of course, so that's the reason why they're in a sense running away with the Drivers' Championship, though it's not confirmed yet and will be later on today. But they are running behind the TF Sport crew, number 34, to the tune of 4 points.
1 minute to start the second part of qualifying. I remind you, track has been declared wet, and it is in fact very wet.
Eduardo on home ground this weekend, speaking his home language as well as English to us. And just pointing out to us how He'd organised the English-style weather just for us. It is just coming straight down now. There's hardly a breath of wind. What I would say, Johnny, is in British terms, yes, it's wet, but it's not cold here.
No, it's not.
It's late teens, 18, 19 degrees Celsius in the air. The track is not going to be very warm, and it is very wet and greasy. But it's not unpleasant out there in terms of the weather. But look at this standing water now.
9,
There's the countdown.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Session has started. Session has started.
You're going to get that standing water also in the pit lane by the looks of things without cars circulating. Yes, current air temperature 18.3 degrees Celsius. Track temperatures nearer 21 as the cars are out for a second time, John, for the next 15 minutes.
Just checking tyres there. All the tyres obviously have to be checked by the officials here to make sure that they are the correct specification. Single manufacturer being Michelin, and that was why we were getting barcodes being read there in the pit lane. So this is where it really should get a bit more fast and furious, but I suspect with the temperature and the rain falling very heavily now, Johnny, this might be get a banker in early and then see what you can do after that.
It's unlikely to improve,
No,
I think,
that's
through
true.
the session. So, yes, the earlier, the better, in a sense. I just wonder about Alexei Basov, because he was only good enough for 5th in that first
Which is
session.
unusual.
We got down to a 154.2 for Sally Yolok, who is about to,
That's
he's
brief.
going to allow Mads Rasmussen by in the 71. Interestingly, that's Felipe Barreros now. It was Rasmussen in the car earlier on, but of course it has to be a bronze driver, and Barreros and Rasmussen are both bronze, I believe.
Yes, correct.
So there is an option for that team, and I think only that team, to switch their drivers.
That's correct,
And
because
that
everyone else is either silver or gold for the second drivers.
That makes sense, actually, because if the race is... Oh, Barreros with a huge moment, who is Portuguese, by the way, so he may well know this place very well. But that might have been an option for the AF Corsa team to get Mads Rasmussen out for a bit more track time. The race could be held in these wet conditions, remember. Give Mads Rasmussen 15 minutes and then Felipe Barreros to properly qualify the car.
Well, and given that nobody's got to drop out, it was no gamble at all. And
Precisely.
actually, in fairness, Mads Rasmussen wasn't one of the slower drivers.
No.
So that's kind of paid off, I think. So we need to keep an eye then on this number 71 AF Corsa 458 Italia GT3, because we've got here is Felipe Barreros at the wheel, and he is a bit of a local. And the mid and rear engine cars dynamically should be better in the wet.
Yes, but I sense there's a but coming.
Still got to feel it through your backside and your right
That's
foot,
true.
haven't you?
Yeah.
It's fingers, absolute fingertips on the steering wheels at the moment, trying to just judge the grip, and all the traction control in the world turned up to 11 will not defy the laws of physics. One of the things that will be interesting is just getting used to the ABS in these conditions, as the number 7 with Luigi Lucchini at the wheel, just going a little bit wide there, but keeping it on the black stuff.
Yeah, found the apex through the first bit of the chicane and then almost deliberately wide on the outside. This is Egidio Perfetti again. The car, he's attempting to turn the car in, and the car says no, not on your life, and he has to have another go at it. And sideways again, but he got it back, in fairness, keeping it off the inside curve. This is the approach to the chicane then. So through the hook, and now the chicane proper heading towards the S's. And again, Egidio Perfetti, first flying lap, taking his life into his own hands in a sense, because some of that standing water will be in exactly the same sort of place, but you've almost got rivers coming across from one side of the track to the other in places. Very tricky to work out where the grip is, and we've seen him four-wheel drift it through this corner. Happy to use curb again on the exit of Parabolica Ayrton Senna. So this is going to be the first competitive time, I reckon, and a 156.788 is a couple of seconds off But there is an indication of how much standing water there is in the pit lane.
And that is the enemy of braking and turning in, Johnny. On the straights, it's hard enough. You'll spin up the rear wheels. You will feel as though the car is effectively drifting, aquaplaning when a layer of water... Oh, and off has gone the 71 car. And that is...
Barreros.
71 spun at the exit of T1 and is rejoining.
Now see how early he lost that in the piece.
At T1 and is rejoining.
He kept it out the barrier though, almost as if the barrier had been designed specifically for that spin. That was incredible. That reminded me of some of the incidents
Yellow flags at T1.
Seen at places like Le Mans and approach to Tertre Rouge.
At T1. We have some gravel on the track at T1.
That car is dead stick. Notice no lights on it there.
Yeah.
And steaming from the front left. I think he's got it restarted.
You might be right. But yes, a load of stones now strewn over the track just to make it even more slippery.
That was a very, very interesting spin for Barreros because it was so early on in that corner.
Yes.
So that was him lifting off, braking, and probably on his first downshift. It looked like he may have just locked the wheels on that first downshift, and effectively that's like pulling on the handbrake.
71 stopped at T1. I'm trying to understand what's going on with the car.
Trying to get it restarted,
great,
Eduardo.
isn't he? No, I think he doesn't understand why he's still sitting there. He has got the rear lights of that car on now, so there's some kind of electrical power in the Ferrari 458.
Another big wiggle from Thomas Fleur there in the 51 Ferrari. A camera foreshortens parts of the track, particularly the main straight. It also is deceptive because it doesn't give you a true indication of how much the track drops away down into turn 1. And I think there's a spin there for Sally Yoluk in the number 34 Aston Martin as well. But I think Barreros, as the car goes light over the top there, and he's changing down, starting to ease off, that was...
Car 34 spun between T12 and 13.
Thank you, Eduardo.
71 has rejoined, T1 is with gravel.
So 12 and 13 is the exit of the S's, and the first bit of the Parabolica Ayrton Senna, that long, lingering right-hander.
So both cars 71 at T1 and 34 at T12 have rejoined. We do have some gravel at T1. Be advised, we do have some gravel at T1.
Now that is how much standing water there is.
Yeah.
Rear-wheel drive car with an engine in the middle, just squirming because it's hitting puddles and spinning up. Now let's see, this is the tricky downhill braking area, and again there's an issue. Get off that curb, but that's nicely judged this time by Alexei Bazov. Now he's got this, he's hustling this car now. Look at the body language on this car. He's using more throttle, Johnny. He's braking later. He's been prepared to unsettle the car.
That was a really interesting approach, though, because he stuck the car in the middle of the track for turn 1 and then went left to get the wide entry, so staying away from the standing water and away from the curb, but he can't get it turned in there on the approach to the chicane. And
I'm thinking a turbocharged car isn't really what you want here. You want linear power, not all of your power coming in at one time. I think at the moment I'd be very happy in the Porsche or the Aston Martin, perhaps not so much in the turbocharged Ferrari.
Again, squirming under braking there, trying to get the car stopped. But yes, this now, the new Ferrari power plant, a twin turbocharged 3.9 litre V8. It's still a V8.
He's third position, Bazov here, so he's used that first 15 minutes as a sighter, a bit of a recce.
This is Pierre-Marie Delina, and another rotation for Sally Yoluk in the 34 car. This, unfortunately, is going to be the order of the day for qualifying.
That's the interior.
Was I'm trying to recover?
Yeah.
Okay.
34 has rejoined. Yellow flags.
So that's turn 6.
Needing the reverse gear, so staying well off the gravel trap sensibly.
So it's the Mentos Racing Porsche, perhaps unsurprisingly, with 6 minutes to go, that leads from the Ferrari, the Triple F racing team by ACM, excuse me, from the McLaren in second place, and into the pits. Yes. Now that's interesting. 5 minutes left. Is that the end of it for
I just wonder
Bazov in third, or does he need a quick pressure adjustment on the tyres?
possibly. He can go out again. We've got 5 minutes and 40 seconds now, so there is opportunity for an out lap and then a quick lap, in inverted commas. But he might just be saying to the team, I've gone as quickly as I can there, and without throwing it off into the scenery, that's
Correct.
as best as we're going to get. It's a very unusual weekend in the sense that we haven't had much rain at all season, so this is a launch into the darkness for the inexperienced driver, your bronze driver, and they've done very, very well to have, yes, some off-track moments, but thankfully nobody's hit anything solid yet. Yes, exactly. And you just wonder whether you're 2/3 of the way through the session, just freeze it there, because, you know, we're not going to go any quicker. It's getting wetter rather than drier. This is tough.
And a word for our flag marshals as well as our camera operators. You can see that the hardy spectators in there, there's a few of them here already in the main grandstand, are all huddled together for warms like penguins on an ice floe down that front straight underneath the overhang of the main grandstand. And another big moment there for Jolik as he comes through in the Aston Martin.
Jolik now the only car out on track, but he is up on his own time through sector 1.
Flinging it about.
Well, this is his effort now to certainly put it on the front 2 rows, I would say. He's currently 5th.
And that's turn 4 he's going round at the moment.
So Gigio Perfetti is quickest. It's going to be tough for this front engine car.
Through to the kink at 5, down the hill.
1:56.788 is still Perfetti's best time. He had several goes at that, but actually his first opportunity was his best. Let's keep our eyes peeled, though, on the young Turkish driver, Salih Jolik.
Through the hook, through the little chicane there, 9 and 10.
That's
And
fairly
through
neat
the
and tidy.
S's. I'm liking the look of this, and he'll get one more lap if he wants it, and this is a confidence-building lap. There he hits the water, but you've just got to live with that. Let the car go where it is. What you don't want to be doing there, Johnny, is putting in a lot of steering movement or braking or accelerating because the car's already unsettled, because it's drifting across the water. You've got a little bit of water between yourself and the road, aquaplaning, and look at how much the car's moving around under acceleration there.
Just couldn't barely get it straightened up there.
That's pretty brave, that, Johnny.
The lone windscreen wiper is, and he's improved his time and his position actually. Goes from 5th to 4th for Salih Jolik. It's a 2 minutes .632 for Salih Jolik, Ewan Hankey's co-driver. Ewan will be happy with that. Again, it's been fascinating to watch Sally's improvement through motorsport. I think he got himself a little bit of a name in the early stages of his career for being
this, Johnny.
Someone who had a lot of contact and damaged a number of race cars, but he's come on an awful lot since those days. But yes.
Now, is he out of it now?
No, he stayed out, and Felipe Barreros is back out on track, but this almost looks like a kind of installation lap just to find out what the conditions are, like you'd send a course car out just to check out the conditions. So Barreros circulating at the moment.
Yeah, but that's all.
Exactly.
He might get one lap.
This
might just be a sighter, you know, Johnny.
I think it is.
To see if it's worth trying.
And I think it's very much 50-50, possibly 60-40, slanting towards not doing a fast lap. Certainly.
Is Jolik still out there? Yes, he is.
Salih Jolik still out there, and Felipe Barreros still out there. We have drivers in cars. Thomas Fleur still firmly ensconced in the 51 AF Corsa Ferrari, but I think he knows exactly what's coming.
The issue gets to be, Johnny, that when there's enough water on the track, it's not just the fact that the car tyres are being sent away from the road by the layer of water underneath it. You can see these cars aren't they're low to the ground, but they aren't as low as, say, a prototype. Yeah. But you've got to be careful that you're not getting to the stage where the bottom of the car is actually being pressed up off the ground by the water underneath the car, once you get that bow wave effect underneath, because at that point you're on the world's most expensive boogie board.
So that's not aquaplaning, that's sort of air effect as well,
It is aquaplaning, but it's aquaplaning not just on the tyres, but potentially on the underside of the car.
As well.
You're more likely to get that with more aggressive GT cars and with prototypes.
Yes.
But the amount of water that you're getting here, and the sophistication now of even GT3 cars in terms of their aero and their dependence on aero, means that you have got to be careful, and you've got to be able to recognise that. Looks like we've got a pole sitter, I think, and a point for the 88 car. And that, in terms of the Teams Championship, would shift the Mentos Racing 88 car onto 71 points. Oh, hello.
Another caller. This is the 8 car, I reckon. and 45 seconds. Yeah, so this again is just an exploratory lap, I think, just to head out there, not for any competition reasons, just to work out where the rainfall is. But it is the number 8 car of Cedric Mezar out to, please don't damage the car, Cedric, just ease your way round.
Could be just scrubbing in a set of wets here.
Yes, it's not a bad call. This is the only car out in the session now because Sally Yolok has decided to call it a day. And Egidio Perfetti is not going to be bettered there. This will be the second pole position then for the number 88 Mentos Racing car of the year, taking pole at the Road to Le Mans race in June. Got a point for that, but hasn't been on the front position since then. So it's been 3 poles in a row.
Checkered flag is out. Checkered flag will be presented to the next car which crosses the line.
If indeed,
all cars which are in the pit lane must be immediately pushed to scrutineering.
If indeed we get another car across the pit main straight.
Yeah, hang on.
Pushed to scrutineering.
Somebody needs to give him an anorak there, doesn't
Yes.
Poor start line, Marshall.
Poorly prepared from the clothing perspective. Egidio
All
Perfetti.
cars in the pit lane must be pushed backwards into the scrutineering garage.
Beckoning one of his team members
all cars
over.
which are in the pit lane must be pushed into the scrutineering garage, please.
Now, the reason that Eduardo has twice said pushed is because you can't reverse under power in the pit lane, even at the end of the session. Now, that is horrible now, Johnny. That is actually barely drivable in places. If we were going to start a race now, I don't think we'd start it.
No, I quite agree with you.
If I make that's sort of bizarre logic, if you see what I mean. Oh, look at that. That's where I'm talking about the underside of the car. Look at how much water is getting pushed up from the back wheels onto the sills, and you're starting to get an effect there of the water underneath the car. Hardy souls who've turned out this morning.
Absolutely. Well sheltered in that very nice main straight grandstand. In fact, there are a couple of them. But this session struggled to come alive, really, purely because of the weather conditions. And I thought we may see something special from Alexei Basov, but in the end,
well,
he'll
that
start
was pretty special.
Yeah, no, I quite agree. He will start from 3rd, which is way better than 5th, which he's already managed in the first 15 minutes. And Cedric Mezar, very shortly, will work his way back to the pit lane to receive the checkered flag for that car as well.
The other thing that is a good idea to take these cars out, all racing cars, even those that are based on road cars, as these cars certainly are, out of the parabolic at Ayrton Senna into the pit lane. Watch the big puddle here. It would be very unfortunate to jump it into the pit lane wall as you go onto the pit lane speed limiter, and there's the big splash.
All cars in the pit lane must be pushed immediately backwards to scrutineering. All cars in the pit lane must be immediately pushed to scrutineering.
Quickly finish my point. Even race cars that are built on road cars, water gets into them and they steam up. You know, I think he's driven round there just so that his team didn't have to push it backwards up the pit lane and get soaking wet.
That might not be a bad shout.
Brilliant.
Great thinking there from the 8 crew, Scuderia Villorba Corsa. So here is confirmation of the times after Super Pole. It's a 1:56.788 to give the Mentos Racing crew their second pole of the year. Nearly 2 seconds off the 55 of Hiroshi Hamaguchi, but I don't think he had a moment in that second portion, so he's learning, is the young Japanese. And then the 72 car, the SMP Racing machine, was 3rd. That's the Alexei Basov car, and the car, well, the driver's most likely to win the championship, with TF Sport still with an outside chance. TF Sport 4th fastest, with Sally Yolok doing the time. BMS Scuderia Italia 5th fastest from the number 6 71 car, so the 71 in 6th place. The AF Corsa car 5.4 seconds adrift. We didn't get times from the number 25 of Ivor Dunbar. I wouldn't be surprised whether Ivor actually even went out. I don't think he did through the whole session, and that's probably sensible. Villorba Corsa were 9th and 10th position, the 14 car. But both those 3 cars, or all those 3 cars at the bottom of the standings, didn't appear for the second bit of qualifying. Say this quietly, but this is potentially the worst weather we're going to get today. It's going to be cloudy at 2 o'clock, according to my forecast, and mostly cloudy with a hint of sunshine at 4:45 when this race gets
boyish enthusiasm.
This race gets underway. But let's hear from Charlie George and our pole sitter Egidio Perfetti after a great performance. He nabs his second pole of the year.
Well, Egidio, congratulations. Pole position in Well, quite frankly, really difficult conditions.
Yeah. I think that for the Super Pole, the weather really took the turn for the worst. There was a lot of rain, quite a few rivers. That's why I decided to come back in at a certain point. We were going to try and see if staying out we could have done something more. But okay, I'm very happy. I think we were quite strong already yesterday. As a matter of fact, it was me in the car yesterday already for the second free practice. So we knew we were solid. The Porsche is doing a very good job in the wet. So very excited that we could finish, let's say, here in Estoril with a pole position.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
So that gives Gidier Perfetti and Klaus Bachler a point extra. So Gidier Perfetti going to 71 points, and it's wriggled things around a little bit at the head of the order. The race comes later on, though, at 4:45 local time for 2 hours. Thanks to John Hindhoff. Johnny Palmer signing off. Join us later when it'll be sunny, hopefully.